Welcome to Coffee with Holistic Professionals. Today's guest is intuitive healer Barbara Book, who, beside that she's my wife and I really love her, she is an intuitive healer and she shares with us the benefits of using energy work in dog training. As a holistic professional myself, who has years of experience in working with dogs and animals and people, um, I would I would love to share with you Barbara's skill set. So unique, and I wanted to share with you her experience and how to tap into the energy of your dog and to improve your training and behavior intervention results. By incorporating energy work into your dog training sessions, you can enhance your dog's ability to learn, increase their overall well being, and establish a deeper connection with your dog. This type of training or healing approach or modalities, whatever you want to call it, can help calm dogs down and anxious or aggressive, but also boost their confidence and your relationship with your dog. So, I wanted to welcome Barbara Book. Oh, we need to unmute her. Here she goes.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have my wife on my show.
I know it's fun, right?
It is. It's awkward because you helped me so much in the past, and I give you a kind of a little bit of heads up that um, I didn't know much about energy work, even though I had a Reiki degree at some point. But it was Barbara that I worked with in the past as a client, and she introduced me into the more advanced energy works. And actually, I joined her intuitive development workshop, and that really brought me to the level I am now. So, officially, thank you for that. So, tell me a little bit about um, your journey and what inspired you to become an energy practitioner.
Hmm. Well, I didn't start that way. um, I've always been I grew up in Southern California. I was a makeup artist in the entertainment industry. When I stopped doing that, I decided I wanted to get a college degree. I was very kind of nerdy, sciency person I had spirituality, but the little dog has to go out. um, I had spirituality, but I didn't really understand anything about healing in general or any energy work. I thought that it was kind of made up or it was psychosomatic and things like that. And then my dog got really sick really fast. And I found out she was in advanced stage liver disease, and her liver was like the size of a peach pit, and
Oh, wow.
it was perforated with holes. And the vet was like, "You should probably put her down. There's just nothing we can do." Um, and so, of course, I started looking at alternative treatments because I'm an alternative healthcare kind of gal. And I happened upon this website for these people who volunteered to, do some energy work on her for free. There were a bunch of Reiki practitioners. And lo and behold, I said, okay, what the heck? Why not? Free is the right kind of price. So I sent them a picture of her. And a couple of days later, she was fine. So her liver was still small, and but there was no holes in it, and it was functioning normally. And the dog lived another almost 6 years, very healthy. And so she literally went from I can't walk, I'm not eating anymore, I have her scheduled for euthanization, to she got up, had something to eat, she was fine. Like there was nothing wrong with her. Then literally the next morning after they did the healing session. So I said, "What did you do?" And I want to learn how to do that. Can somebody show me how to do that? Is that like some special magic that you guys have with some special skills? And they're like, "Nope, everybody can learn it." So I started, I got attuned to Reiki 1, and then it just became an energy junkie and I became a Reiki master. I learned all these different Reiki um, types because there's lots of different styles of Reiki. And then I got into doing quantum healing, hypnotherapy, polarity therapy, like quantum touch, reconnective healing, all this sort of stuff. So I have 23 years of experience. That happened in 2000. It was, I want to say, I want to say it was January of 2000. So it's coming up here soon, my anniversary. And I just do mostly intuitive healing, which means I kind of put modalities to the side and I do whatever needs to be done. But I still do reconnective healing for animals because I feel that it's really valuable modality, kind of helping them to reconnect back into their wholeness. It just seems to work really well for them for some reason. Reiki works really well with animals as well, but the reconnective for me personally and the kind of energy that I am, it works the best for me. So that's what I use primarily with animals now.
That's
And here we
amazing and
are.
interesting to see, you know, the progress from having a spotted liver issues, and all of a sudden the dog is back and running again. From an engineer perspective, because I'm a former engineer, and if you cannot measure it and you cannot see it, it doesn't exist kind of person.
Yeah, I have to quantify
How,
everything.
right? How can you explain energy work? Like, what is it? How does it work? Like, because
Well, I
people think
mean,
energy work is kind of like touching things and sending energy and wishes and prayers, whatever. What is it?
it can be all those things. Really what it is, this is just particles vibrating at this frequency that creates this illusion of being solid. But really, this is a bunch of light particles that are spinning and creating this illusion. So, that being said, we are just energy. And we aren't just this energy in the physical body, we're a larger structure as well with multiple layers. We live in multiple time space. I mean, we're just this big multi-dimensional light being. And science hasn't really figured that out yet, but sometimes they have. There's certain studies and things like that that are starting to notice that maybe the human aura is an actual thing.
Yeah, I
But
know from
basically,
government facilities. I know
huh?
from government facilities like FBI and
Oh
CIA
yeah,
and
they
all this.
did.
They
They had
actually have
studies that
studies
are.
done and
You can go on
processing, right?
CIA.gov and go into their archives, and you can
Right,
look at
right.
all the studies that they've done. And also, they did a ton of programs and things like that in the 70s and the 80s, around energy and the human field and our connection into this field of that they called the matrix of all the information that exists that we can access. So yeah, I mean, it's a thing, but a lot, mainstream science doesn't buy it yet, which is totally okay because I don't care. I used to care a lot, and I used to always try to quantify things. Even when I started doing reconnective healing, it was cool because I have an actual book where they had this Russian scientists did a bunch of studies on energy work in general. Published this book about energy healing studies, which I thought was really cool and valuable. Um, but basically, what we're talking about is we're helping a person or an animal remember their wholeness, for lack of a better way to put it. The type of energy healings that I do work on entrainment. So you're bringing like a weaker frequency energy particle into alignment with a stronger energy frequency particle and kind of locking them into resonance. So it really just helps that weaker frequency. Say if you have illness or you have emotional issues, anxiety, that kind of thing, and you're not your field is not healthy for whatever reason, because most of the time if we have a lot of emotional issues and our animals as well, if you have an animal that is misbehaving a lot, sometimes it's just because nobody's ever shown them the right way to do things. Other times it's because they have a lot of anxiety or fear that's coming up and they have trauma, right? So
Right.
in people, it's the same thing. So what energy healing does is it helps to reconnect people and animals back into their wholeness, for lack of a better way to put it. The mech behind it is subject for debate. We don't really understand 100% how a person can do this, but we can do it anyway. We can do it in person. We can do it distance, because when you're doing energy healing, you don't have to be there. You don't have to touch the person, even though it's nice, or the animal. And with animals, it can be great, especially if you have an animal that is truly anxious, really disconnected, fearful of people and that kind of thing, I can just be in my house and they can be over there and I can look at a picture and I can play with the energy and help them to connect that way. And that
I remember a
is
client
helpful.
that I had in the past. A client, actually, I supposed to travel to Louisiana for a rescue, and the problem was that the dog was so aggressive he couldn't be accessed in their kennel,
Hmm.
and so I was already traveling down there. So I asked for help to do some energy work. Back then, I didn't know about you yet. We didn't met yet, and so I got help from a Reiki practitioner to do energy work into the kennel and in the environment of the dog. And by the time I arrived there, people had already took the dog out for a walk. I was like, what?
Right. That is a normal thing that happens with healers. Is when they do work, just like people, dogs can get stuck too. They can get stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. Um, and doing energy healing can really help them to get out of that space that they're in when they do get stuck. I mean, I've had people, you and I know somebody in rescue who called me for the same thing. She took the dogs out to go to the bathroom. She was driving dogs. She was transporting dogs, took them out to go to the bathroom and then tried to get them back in the van. And one of them would not get back in the van. And this is a huge dog, like a 200-pound dog. Couldn't get him back in. She was panicking. She was on the side of the road. It was not in a good place. And couldn't get him in. And so she called me and I worked on him for 2 minutes and he jumped right in the van. He was just scared. It just helped alleviate the fear and the anxiety a little bit because they can feel the energy. They can feel it start to kind of transmute those blocks or whatever the reason was why he was afraid to get in. It didn't fix it. It just helped him to feel more calm and comfortable and balanced so that he could go, wait a second, I was just in there. It was fine. Do you know what I mean? He could be more rational because he was in total fear state and frozen and he just couldn't get up into that car.
I remember when I was starting doing my trauma work for my personal complex trauma issues. I went through different therapies and psychologists and sessions, and ended up even working with a program called the Meadows, where drug addicts and alcoholics work. But
Right.
the most experience I had was doing a connective healing session
Hmm.
on myself. And
Hmm.
in the beginning, I thought like waste of money because as soon as I woke up, I was still the same person wearing the same clothes and didn't still have the same thoughts. I was like, okay, that was for nothing. I don't know what
But
expectations I had. So I
right.
walked down the staircase. I left the office, the treatment office, and I walked down the street. I was in Athens back then, in the in the early 2000s. And the moment I walked out of that healing session, I recognized the usually gray white of Athens. I recognize vivid colors. Like it was very unnatural to me because I wouldn't pay attention to those colors. It was just all of a sudden it was this wow red and a woo blue and wow he, sky and light and everything was like it became everything more vivid. So I got actually scared. So I made a U-turn, went back up to the office. I was like, this is my experience I have right now. I'm kind of concerned. What is this? And she's like, well, it seems like your awareness changed. You're more aware of your environment.
Hmm.
And it didn't kind of click back then until I recognized when working with dogs and they're having this environmental issues. They don't recognize the environment correctly. It comes through a filter that you said before, and it's kind of like this illusion of sometimes of what's really happening out there because of a trauma brain of a dog. Like I had a trauma brain, and suddenly doing energy work, these filters kind of blur out a little bit, and it seems the dog is more connected to himself and to the environment.
And
Now,
grounded,
and grounded, right?
and grounded
And so my question,
because yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Now we have a little bit of a delay, so
Oh, I'm sorry. So the a lot of times animals can feel really ungrounded, especially in the way that they're living right now. Most of the time they're in the house, or if they are in the backyard, it's mostly maybe pavement, or when they go for walks, it's on the pavement. It's hard for them to ground. It's hard for them to kind of connect in, and they'll just like, they're almost not like they're in their bodies all the way. They're just up here. They're just letting, like you said, trauma brain and the firing off of the fight, flight, or freeze, response take over, and rational mind goes out the window. And so when you're doing with healing sessions, especially with reconnective healing, it can help you to reconnect back into that and help to become fully embodied. So you're not only embodied, but you're connecting in with your higher aspect, or that kind of perfect version of you that is a little wiser, a little smarter, and a little bit more connected in, and less fearful and less anxious. And you're able to perceive things in a much different way, where usually what we're always in our head, we're always thinking, we're always being triggered by our environment, by other people, by whatever is happening. And it just helps when those triggers kind of get transmuted back into light, because that's really what it's doing. It's helping you to transmute those triggers that we have, and all that stuck, blocked emotional energy that's holding, that we've been carrying around. And animals are no different. They are emotional beings. And they normally, in a normal environment, they don't have an issue expressing themselves. They're not forced to shut up. They're allowed to express themselves in a natural way, but in a human environment, we don't allow them to express themselves. So if they growl at you because they have a toy that they really want, and they are just saying, hey, you know what, back off, I'm doing this. In the wild, that would be fine. But with people, we're like, oh my gosh, he is reactive. He's aggressive. We need to stop this. Let's put a collar on him. Let's choke him. Let's, tell him, no, bad boy, whatever it is. Don't ask for anything that you want. Don't be, animals are not allowed to express their emotions except for happiness, period, in our care as pets. And that's not fair to them. Even when they get depressed, we put them on Prozac, So, right. And that's the biggest reason why I think a lot of animals have emotional issues, and even a lot of the health issues that are really common to what we have that you don't normally see in, like, maybe street dogs. Or free roaming dogs. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, yeah, of course it answered my questions, because you didn't left anything close up. Everything like went right into the details.
Right.
My question is, from a training perspective, as a behavior consultant that works remotely, is this a standalone system? You can do just energy work and address behavior issues or training issues?
No, not even a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to tell them how we met really quickly. So Roman and I met because I had a dog that was, Roman and I had a dog. I had a dog that was dog reactive, and Roman had been working with a dog that a shelter had given him for, I don't know, how long did you have Indigo?
6 months.
6 months. And he just got to a certain point. It was just one of those dogs where you just couldn't get to a certain point. And she was aggressive with other animals, correct?
Yeah, well, she was approaching other animals, walked away, and then made a U-turn and tried to kill them.
Okay. So yeah, so she had a thing going on, and Roman did everything that he could. And it just, and so he said, well, let's do a trade. How about if I do yours, you do mine. And, I actually was in Austin where he lived, going to a reconnective animals training, even though I'd been working on animals for quite some time with the system, but I had to recertify. So I went to recertify in Austin, Texas, and Roman happened to be there. And so I worked on this dog for him, and he was freaking out, like, because he had the dog in the crate and he was in the room. And finally I was like, Roman, just leave. It's fine.
Yeah.
He was moving. He was moving to Arizona. And if he didn't get this dog in alignment, there's a possibility she may have been euthanized. So he wasn't going to be able to take her out of state. He already had too many dogs. It's not like he could take her. So I stepped in and said, sure, I'll try it. And I worked on her maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And then Roman was freaked out to even leaving me in the room with her. And I worked on her 5 minutes, and I left, and I go, okay, we'll see how it goes. And she just totally changed. it was from one thing to the other. All of a sudden he's able to put her out with his other dogs just fine. He took her to a boarding facility that is a free range boarding facility. The dogs roam free. And they're all large. Most of them are large breed dogs. And she was there for 2 weeks with no issues and ended up getting
Well, I have to
adopted right
say
after that.
that
You know?
my approach brought the dog a lot of
Right,
progress.
right.
But
He
initially
just
I
got
got
to a
stuck
certain point.
because right, so everything that I did didn't stick, or it didn't seem to stick. The dog wouldn't perform what I would expect to perform, and I was
Right.
pretty confident that the methodology was right, but there was something going on in the mapping that just didn't stick to it. And usually back then I had a fake dog, a decoy dog. I don't have anyone here handy, um, where I tested her. And usually that decoy dog is very indicative because I have different type of decoy dogs. And usually she would have a specific behavior traits to approach those dogs. And after the healing session, the first thing, of course, did is I tested the dog on my decoy dog. And the first thing I saw is she went up to the dog and she licked her face and walked away. And I was like, oh, she's going to do it again. And she didn't. And I was like, wait, what? What happened? Suddenly her standard performance in this kind of situation suddenly changed. Now, the first thing went to my mind, because I'm kind of like still narrow-minded back then, I was like, maybe she got into something in the crate and she doesn't feel well because of her not behaving the way she should. So I went back in and checked out the crate and everything was in there as planned. And then I started kind of like, is it possible that Barbara really did something here? So since I saw that there is any issue with the decoy dog, I brought one of my working dogs. He was a three-legged pit, Ziggy. You met him later. And he was a very confident dog and a very intuitive dog. So I could read the way he behaves around other dogs, even in distance, what kind of mood these other dogs are. And as soon as I let him out, of course, everybody was on a leash. He invited her for a play date. And I was like, what? Like, hey, dude, are you sure about that? And well, then I dropped the leash. And then I checked out the situation. And yeah, I took a risk, but for some reason, something in me gave me this trust that says, I should trust it. I shouldn't just, because I did all this work before and I
Mm-hmm.
trusted that something changed and that could be kind of coming to surface. And indeed it happened. So after your healing session, that dog reached the potential.
Right.
And then I called the friends of mine who has a free roaming shelters with free roaming facility with 32 dogs, and I didn't tell him all the truth. I'm sorry, just you watching today, right? I didn't tell you all the truth. I just had him evaluate the dog from scratch. I says, hey, I have a dog that I'm just working on. I'm wondering if you could take care of him. And he has this introduction system. He's in between kennels and introduce him the dog into the group through a kennel run, and then another dog. And this dog performed pretty good. And I was like, behaving like weirdo. And he's like, dude, what's going on with you? I was like, nah, I'm just worried. Like, and he's like, back off, go home. I'll call you if something happens.
Did the
And he never
recording
called
stop?
me. No, it's
The
working.
the feed just stopped and it said that the recording stopped.
Oh, it may be stopped on your side on recording,
Okay.
but the recording
Okay.
works. Yeah.
Sorry.
So that was my experience, and I was like, I need this. I need that to be part of my training program, because that will give me the trajectory that I need to help clients.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I think we worked over 250 cases or more,
At least, yeah.
right? Over the
And you know,
years.
the thing about that, when you look at like a dog like Indigo, basically they get stuck in this trigger. So the way
It's
that I
this
perceive,
survival loop.
yeah, the way that I perceive things, I perceive them on a very energetic level. So I'm going to describe the trauma to you in under 30 seconds on an energetic level. You have an emotion, okay? An emotion is a physical response to something. That's all it is. It's your body telling you something is wrong or something is right. Okay. So, like if I get anxious, maybe I start to get a little tightness in my throat, my stomach flutters, I start to tighten up other muscles, my jaw will tighten up. That's what anxiety feels like in me. Everything's different. I know this because I'm actually in my body when I'm experiencing it. I'm paying attention to it. I'm paying attention to how I'm feeling, And then usually it'll go away if I do that. If I don't pay attention to it and I ignore it, or I try to stuff it down, or I'm not allowed to feel what I'm feeling, like in the case of most dogs, or maybe I go into shock because it's a very traumatic experience, which is why a lot of times trauma can create this kind of sort of trauma brain, and we can hold it in our memory, but also on a cellular level, on a really unconscious cellular level. So you have this energy that gets created, this bioelectric energy that gets created when you are not allowed to have an emotion that has a beginning and a middle and an end for whatever reason. That emotion and the bioelectric energy that it creates in the energy field starts to condense and compact, right? Until over time, you forget about it, but it becomes like a piece of you frozen in time energetically. And this is what we call an energetic block. And that energetic block sits there in the energy field and it creates havoc. The first thing that it does is it creates a trigger. So let's say somebody said something that made me feel anxious and I felt like I was in danger sometime in my life. And for whatever reason, I went in, I had a couple of cocktails and I stuffed it down or whatever. And I didn't allow myself to go through the experience of healing from it. And eventually it became this trigger. Whenever some other person says the same thing or something similar or looks like that person or whatever, I'm going to get triggered. Okay. Even if the person, it's a completely different situation, there's nothing wrong, I'm going to get triggered. Everybody has these triggers. If you're scared of snakes and you don't know why, maybe when you were 3 years old, you saw something on TV, and it was very scary to you, and it was a snake in the movie or whatever. And all of a sudden you're scared of snakes, but you don't know that. Somebody makes fun of you, tells you not to, feel the way that you're feeling or whatever. It basically just creates this scenario where you don't even know why you're being triggered by something, but you are being triggered. So in the case of animals with behavior, especially, and the majority of animals have some sort of a trauma, whether they come from a breeder or they come from a rescue or you find them on the street or whatever, they have trauma because things aren't normal for them in the human world. They don't have normal, natural things that happen. Like in the case of deer, perfect example. Deer are hanging out and they're eating grass. And then all of a sudden, maybe there's a mountain lion or a bear or something, or they smell something, or all of a sudden they go, something's wrong, right? And then all of a sudden they start, they think there's enough danger for whatever reason that they need to get out of there. So they go into flight mode, right? And they start running. And then eventually, they realize that there's no danger anymore. They stop, they shake a little bit, and then they go back to eating. It's like, and they don't have this emotional stuckness that we have in nature because they know how to ground. They know how to get their energy out. They're not being repressed in any way. So that repression is what causes so many illnesses. It causes behavior. It causes anxiety. It causes stress. It causes the fear response. And so animals are exactly the same way, and dogs are no different, especially because they are one of the primary pets that we own, right? That we choose to buy or rescue, and we own them. So they're basically like little slaves to us, and we need them to behave a certain way to live in our house by our rules. And it's hard for them. And if you think that it's not hard for them, try becoming an animal intuitive and communicating with them. It is hard for them, even if they have unconditionally loving to their family and all that sort of thing. We really need to start thinking about that, because as an energy healer, what we do is we're going in and we're helping to kind of heal those triggers. So when you have the case like Indigo had some triggers. She had some trauma. I don't know what her story is. I don't know if you do either, but obviously when a dog's in the shelter, it's extremely traumatizing for any dog that's in the shelter.
She broke out of the kennel and attacked another dog in another kennel and went
right.
through
So
the
just
kennel.
because they have this intense anxiety, if you walk into a shelter, you can hear all the barking. That's anxious dogs, not happy dogs. No matter how good the shelter is or rescue, that is anxious dogs, not happy dogs. So that being said, and you can check me if I'm wrong, Roman, but I'm pretty sure that that's what's going on, because that's what I feel. When you start doing energy work on them, it just helps to transmute that energy. and get it flowing again, so that trigger's not there, so that they aren't going to respond in a way that's inappropriate in a situation like a toy dog just sitting there on the floor isn't going to trigger them into an attack response. And so that's how it works. That's how it works from beginning to end, is when you do an energy healing session, we're just helping them to kind of reconnect those little pieces that are frozen and get them flowing back into living, organic, moving light. And we're clearing triggers. And when we clear those triggers, that's when the healing can really start happening. And what can happen sometimes, let's say you have a really fearful dog, like in the case of, remember Tucker, the little dog who wouldn't come out from under the bed? That dog, sweetest dog in the world, he was terrified of people. And he just wouldn't let anybody touch him. And he lived under the bed, and he was a rescue who'd been really abused. And after we did a couple of healing sessions, he was great. But then the behavior issues really started, because then his little personality came out. And he started getting into everything because he wasn't really trained. And we had lifted this burden that had been on him for a really long time. Right. So
yeah,
when
we can
we
kind
start
of
to
call
marry
it
the two, when you put training and healing together, this is how it can help. It can remove those blockages that are keeping a dog stuck in a behavior that you can't get them out of no matter how hard you try. Right. In those situations, that's when it's really helpful. Every once in a while, and it just makes it easier for the trainer to come in and start to be able to teach the dog a new way of being. Because a lot of times they've been stuck in this trauma for so long, they don't know how to be in this world. They don't know how to respond. They don't know how to behave. They don't know a replacement behavior for what's been happening. So then a trainer can come in and start to help that dog to heal from it in that way, and help them to start to be able to, because really what training is helping a dog to live in our world. That's all it is. You're training a dog to live in a human's world. That's it. And whatever you need him to do, because technically dogs are kind of like working for us.
Right. So one thing I noticed, and that's why in the beginning, when I implemented energy work into my training programs, and I have two programs. The one is Secure Attachment Program, that's just the relationship mechanics and psychology around parenting a dog with behavior issues. And then I have the Behavior Healing Program, which also incorporates different aspects of relationships and energy and trauma and ancestor trauma. All these things are included. In the beginning, I had healing sessions, and I referred people to you in the beginning. But then I noticed, if we have a breakthrough and we do have a healing process and dogs start already responding, the people were not prepared for the outcome of that healing process, because the dog was better, feeling better and doing better. But then all those little behaviors come up to surface, because having a dog under the bed all day long, you don't see that once the dog gets out of his shell, then he will
likes
have
to chew on
issues, right?
things. And,
He's going to have
yeah.
separation anxiety, and he's going to, because the dog was just shut down. And once you open that kind of worms, so I noticed that people have to be prepared for what's going to happen next, and the dog has to be prepared what's going to happen next as much as you can. The environment has to be adjusted accordingly, because having a dog in a kennel being shut down, and then all of a sudden you expect the dog to be free roaming and understand the world like you never have before, we need to kind of be open about that. Then we have people that try to do different things with the old behaviors they are used to, and then we have this, let's call it biased thinking. My dog cannot be healed in one day, so therefore I have time to change. No, you have to change before the dog changes. You have to have things ready before the dog changes.
Prepare for it. Yeah.
Right.
Because it's not every time either, and that's the thing is that it usually helps. More often than not, it helps a high percentage of animals, but then you have like that 20% where it just has no impact on them at all. I personally believe that every dog gets, or any animal or person gets, exactly what they need in a healing session. It may not be what you want to happen. Like I've had situations where you have a dog that is having a ton of behavior issues, but they also have a physical underlying issue that's partly responsible for it. So the healing work, even though I'm not trying to do it, the healing work will actually work on that dog's physical issue and clear it. and so it's not going to magically like make the behavior better. You know, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't like, I don't wave a little wand and all of a sudden, boop, you know, you don't pee in the house anymore. It clears whatever the reason is behind the issue. Okay, whether it's trauma, whether it's a physical issue, and not all the time, because not every dog is supposed to heal from energy work. For, you know, reasons that I don't understand. I'm not Jesus, you know. I can't just like poke my finger at somebody and they're all healed.
Oh, we have a little bit of a video issue here. Oh, here you're back. I can hear you. So one thing that I notice working with clients over the years, and you know, referring them to you, one thing that I notice is that sometimes dogs have this individual, let's call it esoteric choice, to divert a healing towards their partners. And that was very amazing. I felt like I was watching actually a session in real time because I was there, where the dog was normal, hanging out and doing nothing, like a little bit of, in your terms, they do this, let's call it, movements. You have a special term for that. Registers, now I remember.
Oh, okay, sorry. I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
And suddenly the owner started having registers and the dog having registers. I was like, how funny is that? They're both getting healing session through the dog at the same time.
Yeah, registers are just little like twitches, or like the eyebrows going up and down, your eyes moving back and forth. They're like these weird little thing that happens when you get certain kinds of energy work, and that are not common to, you know, that specific person or dog.
So this is so amazing. Now, do you educate people? Like, talking about me, I had no clue, and you kind of got me into my healing abilities.
Right.
I'm intuitive, and I do have intuitive abilities. I do have healing abilities, but in cases that I feel like not really comfortable because of the complexity, I do refer out to you.
Mm-hmm.
However, can people learn to do what you do, and how is this
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah, the only thing that they can't learn from me is reconnective healing, because Eric Pearl has the rights to that. If you're already attuned, I can certainly like help people teach people how to show it, how to use it, but they can't call themselves that. So the best thing to do if you want to learn how to do reconnective healing is go on Eric Pearl's website. I think it's called The Reconnection, and you can find out how to do it there. Reiki, intuitive healing, all that stuff. That's my area. I teach people how to do it all the time. You and I have had Reiki courses for people healing for animals, which we know.
Yeah,
I no
we
longer
did in several
practice,
shelters.
Yeah, I no longer practice Reiki anymore. So I teach people how to do golden frequency with animals, which is just source light healing, and it's very helpful for animals and things like that. And that's pretty much it now. So yeah, that's a thing that I do.
And how can people reach you, and what services do you offer?
What services do I offer? Just in general? For animals, I offer reconnective healing. I can also just do intuitive healing if somebody wants that. I offer sessions for people a lot. I'm primarily a people healer, but I do a lot of, you know, trauma healing, trauma release, reconnective healing. I have a modality that's called multidimensional healing, which is going through the wholeness of a person, like every layer of their energy field, and going ahead and clearing whatever I find there, or healing whatever I find there. I teach people about being an empath. I do what we call empath training. I train other healers. I mentor other healers, including animal healers. if they're needing help increasing revenue, or they need help, like maybe they have a new skill set that's coming in, maybe a psychic ability that's coming in that they need support with. I do a lot of that as well. I also have a retreat that's coming up in July of 2023, which I'm super excited about, in Mount Shasta, California.
Tell me a little bit about it.
So, it's a people retreat. It's going to be basically helping people in that place where you may be stuck. So if you're feeling like you're stuck somewhere and you want to just really dive deep into wherever that is, or you just want to dive into your own being, your own internalness, and become more embodied, be more connected into your higher self and all of that information, activate your intuitive abilities if they aren't activated already. So it's basically just that in a beautiful, amazing setting. And we're going to do nature walks, and we're going to do all these wonderful group healing sessions. You're going to learn a lot, how to learn emotional mastery, healing trauma, all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be amazing. And it's in this beautiful boutique hotel in McLeod, which is just outside of Shasta. And, it is a dog friendly environment. So people can bring their dogs, but it is a people healing retreat. So if anybody's interested in that, you can go down to my website, which I'm sure Roman's going to post, and you can take a look at it. I haven't posted it yet because it's still being written. So give me a couple of weeks and look out for it being posted in mid-February. And that's it.
I super appreciate all this information that you gave us. That anybody has any questions? Now it's the time.
Cool. Let's see.
Yeah. So I really appreciate your time today, and thank you for joining your husband in his show, Coffee with Behavior, Holistic Behavior. Sorry.
Did you forget which podcast you were on?
yeah, because usually I have everything scripted out, but I don't think that's something I should script out. Go ahead.
Can I make a quick comment about somebody from Facebook user said? They said companion. It's so sad to feel like we own a dog. I think companionship has nothing to do with owning. Companionship is friendship, and we should treat our dogs like friends. In order to live with us, we need to teach them, but like we would teach a friend. I agree 1,000%. And that's why Roman and I do what we do, is 1,000,000,000% what you just said, Facebook user, is because we actually, that's one of the reasons why we do. I mean, well, it's kind of everything, because the whole system is set up right now to own an animal like they are, a slave. And the whole system is set up like that. And we don't like it. And so we want things to change. We want people to start treating animals in a way that's different than how they're treating them. Like, especially our companion animals that we love, who are members of our family, but we treat them like slaves, for like, do what I say, when I say it, blah, 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 blah. It's not cool, and it needs to stop. So that's my opinion anyway. I think that dogs need to be behaved in the environment that they're in, and they need to behave appropriately, and they need to learn emotional mastery just like people do. And that's where a good trainer and behaviorists are going to come in to help them to understand what's okay and what's not okay in a space, in a safe way that doesn't force them into a specific way of doing, into a specific behavior, like e-collars and choke collars and, abusive methods of any kind. We're just helping them to understand how to be in our space.
So one thing that I noticed, I'm sure some people have questions, but I always was concerned in the beginning, and I wasn't out of my closet yet, about energy healer. I didn't say I do healing work, which I already did for 5 years. I was just hiding it because I had already the nickname, the woo-woo trainer, because I had this weird behavior approaches. And some people says, "Oh, woo-woo trainer, you're surely driving a Prius, right? And are vegetarian."
You're like, I do.
But anyway, but one thing that I recognize is that energy work is something that is very near to dogs. We know already from science that dogs come up to us and we feel good. This is part of energy work. So we have
Hmm.
dogs who are energy healers and come into our lives. We have service dogs who are emotional support dogs. And it's just very near to those dogs. And really dogs taking that energy in. And even if you think you may do wrong at some point, there is no way the dog would take something wrong because its
Hmm.
energy is just available. It's not something you put down the drain or you put it in a glass of water. It's just available. The dog will take it in or not, or divert it to somewhere else. Sometimes dogs are kind of like conduits without getting directly affected by it, but sometimes in that conduit exchange, they can also draw energy that they need and let the other wind flow. It's such an abundance of frequency out there. The other thing that I notice is that as people have certain expectations of a trainer or behavior consultant that's more into the technical aspect, fix my dog, train my dog, in a healing session, certain things can come up into surface. People will have experiences, a dog will have experience, and at some point these things have to be discussed. So if I have a dog, for example, that I'm working on that has severe trauma, I notice that usually the person who has that dog has also similar core traumas. And if I want to help my dog overcoming this trauma, so I have to start talking about these things. So it is sometimes that we don't feel comfortable touching that subject, but I feel having an energy healer being part of the training session and let them take a little bit the hit. Sorry, Barbara. It's helpful open up a conversation for you to say, well, it's not my opinion only. Here is a person who actually can help you with it and can have a joint conversation about how energy work can also start moving things. And from my
Hmm.
experience as a complex trauma, I never had a side effect of doing healing work. I did have side effects of medication. I did have side effects of talking to a psychologist, and then he told me the time is over. I have to go home now. Right? I'm not saying it's the taking medication or being a therapist is something that you should avoid or something like that. But I would see that energy work is part of a bigger system that we
Yeah.
can take in consideration.
Co- Mind, body, spirit. The
Right?
whole the
Exactly.
holism of everything. So spirit isn't just doing yoga and things like that. It's literally means the non-local reality of a human being.
Right.
So mind, body, spirit is, when you're talking about holistic training or holistic anything, that's what we're really talking about. It's not just about um, homeopathy
Aromatherapy
and
and crystals.
right. We're talking about energy here. Let's just call it
Right.
what it is. So,
And one other
and
thing that I
everything that
noticed.
exists on the planet is made up of it. All beings that are on the planet are made up of the stuff. So, you know,
Oh, here we have somebody, Steve Kalko. Yeah.
thank you, Steve.
So one other thing that
I
I
don't know
that
that
I
I understand healing work either. I think I do. I've been
we
doing
are
it a
always
long time.
surprised, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I think we kind of hit the end of the day today of our
Yeah, we
show,
went
and
way
thank you
over. We were going
everyone
to do a
for
half
joining.
hour. Yeah.
I will have an audio version of it in my new blog, What Dogs Are Barking About. It's actually an audio blog, and you can hear it in replay, or you can watch it in replay on my YouTube channel at Holistic Dog Training. At Holistic Dog Training, but also you can watch it in my Facebook group, Holistic Dog Training and Parenting Education. And yeah, you can always keep some messages in the comments. However, if you want to work with Barbara and you're a professional, you want to reach out to her website. And I also have her information on her link if you guys are interested to join the energy retreat. Did I say retreat right, or is it
Yeah.
anyway?
Yeah.
And but if you want to work as a professional and you kind of want to get a little bit of an inside information, I'm happy to share it with you. I'm not. There is no competition if we in about to help dogs. There's so many people out there who have needs of dogs. I don't feel competitive to anyone. So if you want to tap into that direction, you want to have some more information, background before you reach out to Barbara, welcome to message me through my website and tell me, hey Roman, I'm interested in kind of get a little bit into this energy thing, blah blah blah, and we can hop on a call and kind of talk things out. If you have a case and you want to talk about that, you can also reach out to me and we can kind of do a joint session. And if I feel that energy work will do the impact, then totally can refer to Barbara and kind of take that from there. Thank you everyone for joining. Is there anything you want to share before we closing to people who are new to
I
the
just want
energy
to say
world?
thank you. Thank you to everybody for showing up. And I know that probably every single person on this call are people who are force free, fear free, people who care about animals and care about their rights and care about, making sure that we as professionals treat them in an appropriate way. Right. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here today. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you so much. And it was nice to have you here. And
Thanks.
goodbye and talk to you guys soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.